So the language of cinematography can be really intricate and complex, and it can consist of your lens choice, how you frame and compose a shot, how you move the camera and block a scene, where you place your actors, how you light the scene. One of the main elements of any shot is what you have in the background. Now this can be as intricate as a city skyline at night, or something as basic as a brick wall. In today's tutorial, I'm going to download a couple clips from Shutterstock.com and show you a few examples of how you can use the background to enhance your shot. So framing is really at the heart of good cinematography, and while your shot has a main exterior frame, you can further frame your subject using elements within your shot. Now if you see in this shot in particular, I have elements both in the background and in the foreground helping frame me. I have my computer monitor here, the microphone, this monitor here, and then in the background I have the camera over on the shelf there. By properly blocking out your shot, you can really place your camera and your subject in a position that utilizes the surrounding environment. Now in this example, we have a guy walking and there are two buildings in the background, and he's framed nicely between those two buildings. We have the leading lines of the buildings helping draw our eye. And while both the camera and the subject are both moving, the background remains relatively static. Here's another great example. This is a girl hiking along a dirt road, and again, the shot is much more visually interesting because she's following those leading lines of both the road and the tree line. If you were to do a tracking shot from the side, it might not be as visually interesting. Depending on the story you're telling or what specifically you're trying to communicate with your shot, you might want to show a lot of your surrounding environment. As with framing, adding depth to your shot is as simple as properly blocking both the camera and the subject. This is a great example of good use of depth. This is a tracking shot that captures the depth of both the train station and the train in one smooth move. Once again, if you were to follow this subject into the train, walking directly behind him, the shot wouldn't be nearly as visually compelling. Another really great way to control your depth is through depth of field. If you'd like to see all of your background clearly in focus, then simply increase the depth of field. If you'd like to blur a lot of those elements out, use a shallow depth of field. Here's a great example of using shallow depth of field. This woman here is having a beer and she's surrounded by her friends. There's even a man sitting directly to the right of her, but this particular shot is using a shallow depth of field, so he's blurred out, keeping our attention focused on the woman. Understanding how to control depth of field is really going to give you better backgrounds. Another great technique is to utilize the power of color in your background. You can add contrast or use complementary colors to make your subject stand out. In the best scenario, if you actually have a chance to scout out your locations, you can find possible backgrounds and even pull a color palette from those locations. This can help you make important decisions such as wardrobe choices. Here's a great example of this. This is a woman taking photos from a train, and her yellow jacket really helps her stand out nicely against the red of the train. In this shot, we have a businesswoman walking through some buildings here, and her wardrobe matches the surrounding environment quite nicely. This not only makes the shot more visually compelling, but it's going to help if you want to set a specific mood. So oftentimes you might find yourself shooting from a tripod. In these types of scenarios, it can be really hard to add movement to your shot. So if you're in a scenario where you have a static camera and a static subject, you can always try to add movement to your background. So here are two portrait style shots that are applying this technique. While they're subtle, it definitely produces a better image. In this shot, we have a portrait of a man on a work site. Again, the shot is static, he is static, he's just looking into the camera and smiling. However, we do have those sparks flying off behind him, which really helps to add atmosphere to the work site in the background. Here's another really great example. This actress is in front of a city street at night, so we have all the motion of the traffic lights. This shot's also utilizing the shallow depth of field, which really makes those lights blur out nicely. This is even a really good technique if you're shooting during the day. You can have a background where some cars are moving by, or you even have people walking by. That's going to add a nice little touch of movement to your shot, and you can always utilize that shallow depth of field to not make the background too distracting. Here's another portrait style shot of just a model looking into a camera, and we have this cloth moving in the background, which again makes this shot a little bit more dynamic, but it's not too distracting. Now obviously lighting is a huge part of cinematography. Both natural and artificial light can be used easily in backgrounds to enhance a shot. Something as simple as placing your subject between your camera and a setting or rising sun is going to give your shot a lot of depth. The placement of the sun in this particular shot gives us a much more compelling look. With the morning sun shining through the window, both the baby and the woman here have nice rim lighting. And we have this nice flare here. When the sun is revealed, we can't really see the details of their faces. However, when the baby's head blocks the sun, we can see the details. And it just gives us this nice warm atmosphere. And you don't always need to use the direct light for a great look. This particular shot works well because we have our bright background in contrast with a dark foreground. It gives us this silhouette, and we can quickly and easily see our subject standing out. Definitely adds the atmosphere to the shot. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to see more content like this, as always, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell.